Welcome. I'm your host, Addison Asnagi, and this is the Youth Art Initiative. Today we have Raymond Oza with us today, and it's an amazing opportunity to have you with us.
Likewise.
Let me just ask you a few questions if you don't mind. So, how has YI changed or inspired you?
YAI would present you with things that you wouldn't even hear or be knowledgeable about. And so that's one of the things that I like about YAI. So I think YAI has inspired me to get out of my comfort zone. And I think that's good as far as concerned.
Amazing. What's your favorite thing to do when you're in YII?
I definitely love oil pastel. It's one of the most forgiving things that you'll ever do. And if you're a perfectionist like me, you really want it to get perfect. So that means a lot of erasing. And so, because pastel isn't like pencil or where you see a smudge or something like that, it's way more forgiving than that. And I think you get like something very beautiful if you know how to use them correctly.
Glad to hear that. What does YI mean to you?
YAI takes your art skill, whether you're like a rookie artist or an experienced one, and it basically just makes that knowledge about art and what's the word? It makes you more knowledgeable, and you will be able to do more things. And that applies to any artist. And I think that's really cool. Even though I've been drawing and doing art for my whole life, some of the things that we do here I would have never done without YAI.
I understand. How does the arts influence your academics?
Well, like I said earlier, YAI presents you with things that you have never done before. Because how broad the art subject is, there's tons of things that you couldn't have done or experienced. And YAI actually really helps with that and supplies some more of that knowledge to art. And academic-wise, you would be presented with a problem that you had in YAI previously. And so that means you would have knowledge and tries at that certain art assignment that you have to do. And this has happened to me before, and I've experienced this before. And it really did help me out my grade because I was more knowledgeable on what we were doing.
Yeah, I can really understand to this because since I wanted to be, or right now want to be, a young artist, it really helps me in school on YI teaches me what I could learn better in school, right? So when you're in art class and they ask you a quick question, we already know that question quickly since we already learned it in YII.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you so much for those answers, Raymond. I'm so grateful for this interview with you today. Well, until next time, stay safe, be well, and talk to you later.
Hello, I'm Miss Alana, and for today's YAI Fine Art activity, we are going to learn a type of at-home printmaking technique that's going to look like this, that creates impressions of leaves. So the materials for today's project, you'll need a piece of paper, either like printer paper, construction paper, or a mixed media type of paper will work for this. You also want some leaves. You kind of want some in like a variety of sizes, some like smaller ones, some big ones, really whatever you have on hand. I got all of these from my yard, so you can probably go outside, find a couple of different types of leaves, and then take them inside and use them for this. And you'll also want a packet of markers. And within your markers, if you don't have a black marker, then a Sharpie marker would work well for this too. Okay, so I have my leaves set up and ready for me, and I have my packet of markers. And first I'm going to decide on my placement of my leaves. So pick around, look at the different leaves that you have, place them on your paper, and once you have a composition that you enjoy, then we're going to get started on our coloring. So I played around with my leaves, and this was the composition that I settled on. I have a couple of the bigger ones, a few mediums, and then like one smaller leaf. You can set up your leaves however you like. You don't have to do yours exactly the same as mine. This is just for inspiration. And now that I have my leaves ready, I am going to grab my markers. I am going to do my print in a rainbow type of color for these bigger ones. So I will first take out the colors of the rainbow that I'm going to use. So I have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple for my colors. I am going to do these two bigger ones in all of these, and then these smaller ones I'm going to use a little bit less color with it. So I'm going to grab the first leaf that I'm going to work with and try to remember where I placed it on my paper, and then going to push this onto the side for now. And I'm going to grab another piece of paper just to have on my board while we do this so I don't get marker all around in my area. You can do that too if you want. So I have my colors. I'm going to go from red to purple at the ends. So the way that you color your leaves is that you just take your marker and you rub it onto the inside part of the leaf. So this is the outer side, this is the inner side. It's typically the lighter color on whatever type of leaf that you grabbed from outside. And I'm just gonna color this section in red. My next one is going to be orange. And you just want to make sure that you get at least majority of your leaf colored in. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you start looking at the actual leaf itself, you're going to see that it's not absorbing it. It is just keeping the marker on the surface of it. And that's how we're able to do a print with it, because it's not being absorbed. And you want to work kind of fast just to make sure that your marker is still wet by the time we put it on the paper. I have two more colors left. The blue. And then the last one is purple. You might get a little bit of marker on your fingers. And now I am going to bring my paper back over here. And I have my leaf facing up like this. I'm going to put it down. And then I'm going to start rubbing it onto my paper. You want to hold it in place on one side so then it doesn't fall off. And then after you press on it a couple of times, you can peel it off and you can see the imprint of the leaf that we just had. So you can look at it and you can see all of those veins and lines in the leaf are now on our paper. So I'm going to do the same thing to all of these other leaves. So this is my other big leaf, and that's the one that I just did. I am going to do the rainbow again, but I'm going to do it in reversed order just to give some contrast. So I did the purple on the tip over there, but now I'm doing the purple in the larger section. And I'm just rubbing my marker onto the leaf. It does not have to be perfect. It just needs to have the marker on it. So this is pretty fun to do, to get messy. yellow. When you're working with the rainbow order, just make sure you're leaving enough space for each color as you go down with your leaf. That's why it's kind of better to do the rainbow color with a bigger leaf, but you can definitely do it with a smaller one as well. And one more color, doing the tip red, holding it down on the other end with my finger as a color. And then bring my paper back over here. Get it ready into position. Hold it down on one side and start pressing it. The heat from your hands is going to help make it transfer as well. Once you think you've pressed down on it enough, you can reveal it. So now we can compare our two leaves with the other ones and see how our colors turned out. We can still see it left over on the leaf and on my paper now. So now that I've done these two, you can continue to do the same thing that I did on your own leaves, or you can decide to change up your colors with the other ones. I am going to do my other ones in some different colors. And once I'm done with those, we're going to look at our full paper finished with our leaf prints and compare how they turned out. This is the other leaf that I had. I'm going to do something different and color in some stripes going the opposite direction. So since it's smaller, I don't have quite as much space. So I'm using less colors to do this part. And then I'm pressing it down onto my paper just like we did before. Holding it down on one edge so we don't lose it, and just pressing as much as I can without ripping the leaf, then peeling it off. And now we have another set of stripes. And then my next leaf I'm going to do in the opposite direction. Again, just messing around with the different types of prints and patterns that we can achieve with our leaves. And be careful of whatever surface you're coloring on. You might get some marker on it. So that's why it's good to have that piece of paper underneath. Grabbing my paper, putting my leaf down into position, and pressing it into the paper. Trying to get as much of the ink into the paper as possible, and then reveal. We have one final leaf to do our coloring activity with. And you can actually layer your colors on top of each other to try to create new colors. Just like you can blend markers together, you can still blend your marker colors while doing this. picture, pressing it down on all edges, and then pick it up. There we go. That is all of our prints with our markers and leaves. So now that we have it done, you can go back and maybe outline your leaves or add some other designs to them if you want. That is completely optional. That's up to you. That's why we have the black Sharpie. You can do some more lines or whatever you think is needed for your print. But if you're satisfied with the way that it looks just as the print itself, then we are done with this activity. I hope you enjoyed doing this with me. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make your own print at home. Printmaking is really fun and you can use a lot of different materials for it. Just markers and leaves is a great way home to do it. You can even take your leaves that we colored in and add those to your paper. You could glue them down. There's endless possibilities of what you can do with it. And I hope you had fun doing it, and I'll see you again with my next video.
Georgia O'Keeffe's art is colorful, bright, and abstract, but there's no question where Georgia's inspiration is coming from. She was a mystical woman with a deep connection to nature and her surroundings. Her abstract art didn't quite match any natural references, but she would use the same shapes, rhythms, and colors to kind of capture her internal feelings. Through her art, you can feel the desert, canyons, forest, or the city. Her creative process was based on ritual and close observation. She would often travel alone for months at a time and immerse herself in nature. She is known for paying really close attention to detail and spending hours matching the perfect color. Decades on, her work contains its wild energy, and O'Keeffe is remembered for her personal mystique and as the mother of American modernism. Today we're going to do our own Georgia O'Keeffe inspired artwork. So I got my oil pastels here, and I also grabbed some little bits of nature to inspire me. I got some seashells, a flower, and a succulent. So I'm going to pick one of these to do my artwork based off of. I picked the succulent. Georgia O'Keeffe is known for doing really close-up drawings of flowers, so that's what I'm going to try to do with the succulent. So first thing I did was go ahead and grab my pencil. I am using black paper because oil pastels on black paper just looks really cool. And I'm doing my little sketch. So whatever natural object you decide to base yours off of, you want to try to make it fill up the entire page. Georgia O'Keeffe is known for really zooming in and giving a lot of attention to detail. Now we got our little sketchy sketch done, we're gonna need to start adding some colors. So I'm looking at my natural reference as much as possible, and I'm just pulling all the different shades of green that I have in my box of oil pastels, and whatever colors I think I might be able to use. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with my highlight. I'm using this lime green as like my bright highlight color, and I'm gonna start laying those in, and I'm paying attention to my reference, seeing where some of those lighter areas of the leaves are, and then just pushing hard with my oil pastel to add some of those highlights into my leaves. So I started with my brightest green, and the next thing I'm gonna do is pick up a middle green and add that to the middle of my leaves. And then I'm going to add a darker green to the very tips of my leaves. So you want to look at your reference, try to add as many different colors as you can. That'll make your picture more interesting, and just have fun. The last thing I did was pick up my white pastel and throw some little highlights in there. I did use my finger just to help soften them up a little bit. Okay, as we're coming towards the end of this video, I just want to remind you to have fun. Georgia O'Keeffe was an abstract artist. She drew her own interpretation of nature, so you can make it totally your own. Here's my final piece. I had a lot of fun making it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Today I'm going to show you how to make a limited edition pop art Coke bottle. Yeah, it turned out pretty cool. So let's get started. All you need is some magazines, scissors, Mod Podge, as well as a plastic bottle of your choice. I didn't have a Coke bottle with me, so I used this one for mineral water and it worked pretty well. First thing, go ahead and grab those scissors and cut off the label of the bottle. Now I do recommend you just set this aside and hang on to it. You might want to put it back on at the end. Now it's time to start cutting pieces of magazine. Now I do recommend picking colors from the same color family. I went with warm colors, so I stayed over on one side of the color wheel. Sometimes when you're looking for colors in magazines, it's easy to just cut out objects, but really try to just cut out different textures. Like in this picture here, I cut out a piece of a pillow, and I think it looks pretty cool. Try to cut out different textures, objects, and words that fit within your color scheme. Before we get going, I recommend covering the area with newspaper or an old tablecloth. That way you don't get glue everywhere. And I do suggest starting with the top of the bottle. If you cover the whole thing in glue, glue will get everywhere. I started with my least favorite magazine pieces and worked up to my favorites. That way I make sure the ones that I really like are sitting on top. That way they're more visible in the end. Don't be afraid to put glue over the magazines. This glue actually dries clear, so it'll kind of work as a glaze. You want to make sure to use the magazines to cover all the way up to the very top of the bottle. You also want to get the bottom of the bottle as well. So that should be completely covered. After you've covered the bottle completely, you can look over and see if there's any little tears or blank areas that you missed. And you can use some of those extra magazine pieces that you set aside, the ones you like the most, and use those to glue on top of those areas. Once you're done decorating your bottle and it looks just the way that you like it, you can go ahead and take the lid off and flip it upside down until it's completely dry. Then if you want to put the label back on, you're welcome to, or you can leave it as is. I happen to like mine better without the label, so I just left it like that. Okay guys, have a great week and I will see you next time.
Hi, this is Pia from West Sanford, and this week what we're going to do is a waterfall. We're going to paint a waterfall, and what we will need is a canvas board, but you can also use a cardboard or stock board, as I told you last week. We will need 2 brushes. One will be a thicker brush, but very soft with the bristles. The other one will be a good thin brush that's normally used for line drawing, for line painting I mean. Okay, and then we're going to need light blue, a dark green, black, and yellow. And of course we're going to need a pencil. So here we go. Let's get the show on the road. With our pencil, we will draw a diagonal line about 2/3 up from our canvas board. With our brush, we will take some blue and follow that line and trace that blue line. Now you will begin doing strokes almost to the bottom, about 2 inches away or 1.5 inches away from the bottom. You will start at the very top of that blue line all the way down, just up and down strokes from one end of the canvas to the other. Now we will take our white, and at the very top at the edge we will just dab white around the very edge on the top of what is going to be our waterfall. Now with our blue mixed with white, we're going to make the sky. And it doesn't have to be a total perfect sky. it's nice to have some streaks in it. It will give you a bit of movement in your sky as though those streaks were clouds. And there you are, your sky. Now go back with your white brush and start at the very top and just very, very lightly and gentle do strokes the length of the blue paint you did. Very, very lightly. Again, do not put too much pressure on your brush. Very top to the bottom, light. Light pressure on your brush, and I can't say that enough. Very light, loose on the wrist. Again, notice how I hold my brush. I'm not snuggling it at the very bottom. Now we're going to, with our white paint, we're going to go on that very top white line and just do very quick little flicks down the way we did grass, but coming down. And with our green brush, we're going to start doing the foliage. From one corner, you're going to do a very thin triangle at the very top of your waterfall. Just dab away, and for the edges, remember how we did the hedge on the previous painting? That's the same thing we're going to do here, so we can get nice little leaf-like edges. So just dab away with your dark green and dab the shape of a tree. I've done a big tree and a little tree to make it more exciting. You can do one tree if you like, but fill in that area by dabbing just your green. And when you're done that side, do the other side, and on this side you're going to do a smaller tree. So do your shape and just dab away with your dark green. Now with your yellow, we're going to do the highlights of the tree. And again, very lightly dab away towards the edge of your tree. Give it an outline. Just dab away lightly. A lot of this is lightly. Do your triangle, do your trees. Just dab away till you get the highlight that you want. Very lightly you will keep dabbing, but keep your wrist light and your dabbing light. You do not want to bang the brush on the canvas. Do a very light touch. With our white paint, we will now do the bottom of the fall. So just do swirls around the bottom. Nice sort of circle swirls. Fill in the area. And now we're going to create the splashing of the water at the bottom of the waterfall. For that, we're going to take our brush and dab around the edges very lightly, creating some splash. And you can also try flickering your brush up just a little bit. Just a gentle touch. Now we're going to add a tint of blue at the very bottom of the water part. Very, very lightly. Now with our thin brush, we're going to create birds in flight with our black paint. We're nearing the end of our painting, and I hope that you're happy with what you've done. So I'll see you next week.
Hello, my name is Christopher Ramsey, and I teach photography and videography at the Disney, Universal, and Levy Hughes clubs. I want to let you in on a secret. Well, it's not really a secret, but it's something that I believe. If you're a photographer, or a videographer, or an editor, or a content creator, you're a storyteller. Your job is to tell stories. Your job is to build a world. But how do you build a world when the real world is on lockdown? You get creative. So what do I mean by get creative? Well, the first thing you have to know is there's no rules. There's no right or wrong. You figure it out as you go. If you don't have a camera, use a cell phone. Cell phones take really great photos. What do you have? What's laying around? Do you have Legos? Do you have Minecraft characters? Do you have superhero figures? What do you have? Do you have plushies? These are all great things to use to build your world. I think you might still be confused about world building, so I want to show you some examples from what we did at the clubs this summer. Here's some world building! So it starts with, you gotta get some stuff. So I have a box. You know, between my son and I found some things. Cool dinosaur. I got some cool figurines. I got this cool Wolfman guy, werewolf guy. I love this guy. That old car, I want to use that somehow. And then I got this figurine of this guy in a yellow suit. In a yellow suit and a top hat. I'm like, oh, I want to use that. Those are my characters. I got the two guys. Those are going to be my characters. Maybe they're Dr. Jones and Dr. Phillips, and they're looking for the werewolf man. And they're driving, and so that's my premise. That's what I got. So this is how you build your world. So I go out in my backyard where it's green. I got a lot of growth in the backyard, a lot of green growth. So that's a good setting. We're in the forest. Probably would like it to be a little bit darker. I don't know. So here's my characters. Like I said, Mr. Jones and Dr. Phillips. I think that's what I called them. And they're looking for the werewolf. Where did he go? Did he escape? What happened? There's the car. See, this is I'm building my world. And here's my werewolf. And he's coming out of the woods. He's coming out of the forest. He's on the run. Gotta set him up. I want to get the green behind him. I want to get the forest, that he's coming out of the forest, that it's up to his waist. You know, he's working through the forest. So now I want to switch to black and white because it feels like a black and white story. Yeah. Curse of the Werewolf. Yeah, here's my werewolf. I can't decide if I like the black and white or if I like the color. So here's a really cool oversaturated color picture that I did. And here's, and I love this one. He's overturned the old car and he's on the move. So that's a little bit of the world building that I did in my backyard. All right, that's it for today. Take these projects, create a photo montage, a storyboard, a graphic novel. Create some art. Go outside. Use your camera. Use a phone. Build some worlds. This is something that you can do. You could do it today. You have the stuff. I want you to do it.